How bad were you?
I think you got to string 12, 20, 25, 30 weeks in a row without rolling a zero.
Was it challenging not comparing yourself to these two when they're throwing apps left and right?
I don't need everybody to do it. And the big waste of time is spending people who aren't going to do it anyway.
How did you get back in the game of recruiting an agency and people?
Try because you're pretty. Try being ugly. That mess is hard. The reason why I got started with life insurance is because I didn't want to recruit anyone. I just wanted to sell insurance and make a living.
Sean Mike said it himself, Tray Honeycutt is the best of all of them. All right, y'all. Welcome to the FFL Enter the Haven call. My name is Mac Aguilar. I will be your host today. I'm going to go ahead and just again congratulate all those folks who you're helping protect families. It's the least glorious or glamorized thing we do, because in order to get there, you have to do some serious work. So as we bring Tray on, we're going to have the chat open. He's going to share some great stories, but the goal is to get beyond just the stories, right? Because the stories, they ring true to our minds, but what I hope happens is we ask some real thought-provoking questions that kind of gets out of the smoke screen and it gets us into something that will actually give us value, right? So let me just kind of share some of the things that I got out of conference. And I'm hoping that in sharing those until Tray comes on makes a difference. I was impressed. When I've always come to conference, I've always been impressed by how simple people do great things. For me, you know, you hear these great people and you think, of course, just naturally that they walk on water. The idea for the mind is that these people are uniquely defective, or rather you are uniquely defective, right? There's something different about them that makes it where you can't fulfill the same thing. Guys, I went to the Hall of Fame dinner. I spoke to some of these people, one of them, the #1 agent, Steve Giordano, which was awesome. And, you know, I'm looking for him to say he dials for 3 years, you know, and he doesn't even take a break. He does the same thing we do, and he just does it at a higher level, which gives me so much confidence. So again, congrats for those that are doing the deal. You're going to find that you are the same. The only difference between you and all the people you idolize is the special word starts with a T called time. That's all. So I'm gonna get myself out of the way. Here's the deal. When you know him as who he is now, but I want to tell you this, Tray, I love you, and he is awesome. He's a great speaker. He's a great storyteller. He's a great trainer. He's a great agent. He's a great everything. But Tray, I'm gonna be honest with you. Whenever I talk to an agent who they are having trouble, right? They can't do something well, where things are very, very challenging, where, you know, they just suck, right? And again, hearing from you, I say, listen, if you only knew someone, and the first one that comes to mind is Tray Honeycutt. So Tray, just to get the cat out of the bag, people think, nah, he couldn't have been that bad. Tray, tell him, how bad were you?
I was pretty bad at it in the beginning, you know, for sure. Yeah, thank you for the introduction.
Absolutely. Listen, guys, this is someone that Sean Mike said it himself, Tray Honeycutt is the best of all of us in every way, right? I'm talking heart. So Tray, let's kind of bust it. If you can kind of get the myth out of it, because of course people think, hey, integrity partner, he walks on water, everything else. Kind of share with us from the beginning, like where were you at when you start this first? How did a Marine land in life insurance? Where were you at? And just be real with this. I mean, it's not going to hurt anyone's feelings. It actually helps enable people or empower people. How bad were you working with the Paul McLeans, you know, Apostle Paul and Andrew Taylor, these guys we idolize? And what does that look like for people starting today?
Well, the weirdest thing that happened, see, I was introduced to life insurance sales in 2008. And I worked at a gym, and a person that I worked with was selling life insurance for a company that did simplified issue, just like what we do. And she lied about how much money she was making. And everybody liked her because she was cool, but she lied about, like, she was like a pathological liar. And she was kind of weird too, because so one time we're at the gym, I worked at the gym, she was my coworker, and she's looking across the gym and she sees this other girl that's like working out. And then she's like looking at her, and then she looks at me and she looks at her and she just starts crying. And I'm like, Kim, like, why are you crying? And she goes, that girl over there, she's bad dogging me. She doesn't like me because I'm pretty. And I thought, you're crying because you're pretty? Try being ugly. That mess is hard. You know? So that's who recruited me initially in the life insurance sales, was Pretty Kim. And I based my opinion on life insurance based on my opinion of her. But she did something really smart. She introduced me to her upline in that company, and we just made friends and talked about baseball for years. And they continued to make a living during like 2008, 2009, 2010, when like the recession and stuff was going on.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd done all this network marketing stuff in my background and things. And the reason why I got started with life insurance is because I didn't want to recruit anyone. I just wanted to sell insurance to make a living. I wanted to be able to like go do my work, go home, be like proud of what I did.
So you were almost jaded from your experience in the past doing network marketing.
I didn't want to see somebody in the grocery store and then like run from me because they knew I was trying to get them, you know, because I was hunting, you know.
Right.
I didn't want to do that anymore. So I was like, this life insurance gig is pretty good because they got leads and I could call them. And so years went by, and because of my relationship with the guy that Kim introduced me to, I got my life insurance license and I started to try it. And my first meeting at that company was Andrew Taylor's last meeting at that company. So that's how I met Andrew. And that was just like a fluke thing. Like, basically gave me his card and said, hey, if you ever need Mutual of Omaha applications, call me, because we lived in the same city. I mean, that's really how that started. And then the next day, like, FFL started, and I stayed around at the other place for a while. And then eventually I made my way over to FFL. But when I first started out, I had on paper, you'd have thought that I would have been the best salesperson to do it, because I had all this experience in like in-home sales, and I sold Culligan and Rainsoft and Cutco.
How much experience have you had in sales?
Dude, lots, like a decade worth. Like, all I did was home sales, and you'd have thought I'd be really good at it. But the way I was taught to do that is almost the opposite of the way that this works. Because it's like, you go in, you build rapport, you do like this 3-hour deal. You know, you're basically hustling people for this high interest rate credit card to buy this really expensive water softener so they can get some free soap, you know. And it was everything that I thought a salesperson was, that you see like on TV and stuff. And so when I came to this, the reason why I struggled is because I brought a lot of that to this. And what changed it for me is just realizing that, like, the people that I'm talking to are interested in life insurance. That's why they're talking to me. And if they don't get it, it's kind of strange, because I already went through all this, and they decided to like let me come over to their house, and then they were there, and then they don't get it. Like, it would be awkward for me not to call that out and be like, this is weird.
Right.
And once the mentality right about it, like, I'm not trying to get, like, they know why I'm coming over. And if they don't get it, it's me. That's all it is. There's something I did wrong. I confused them. It was me. So once I got my mindset right that way, and I understood that I could put the numbers in my favor, that's when everything started to change, and I started to get really good at it. I had some struggles along the way where I would get good at it, and then I would get confused, right? Like they call it sales confusion, like muscle confusion. Like, you go to the gym and like you work out a muscle, and then it doesn't grow anymore, and you got to confuse it. And then
right.
my buddy at the gym was like, muscles don't get confused, stupid. People do. And I was like, yeah, that's what it is. Like, there's no sales confusion. I just got confused. So stuff would work so good that I would stop doing it again. It would work so good the first time that I wouldn't do it again. And then I'd confuse myself. And then Joe Miller was the one that would straighten me out on like a regular basis when it came to like sales. And so I fell into this rut where I was trying to sell everybody on price, where I was trying to sell like fully underwritten, because San Bernardino County, California is like, there's more agents here running appointments than anywhere in the country. And not just from FFL, but from like all of our competitors, because Paul and Andrew trained them all when they were our competitors, and then they went and trained a bunch of them. So this is like the mecca of simplified issue insurance sales where I live, right? So I would get in these competitive situations with agents, and I was like, hey, I got to beat them on price. And so I would go to this fully underwritten model, and Joe would like snap me back and be like, dude, what's wrong with you? Like, that's not what they're asking you for. He goes, and this is what he did. It really helped me out. He goes, if you sent somebody a card in the mail for Gerber's children insurance, would you show up and try to sell them be your own bank? And I'm like, no. He's like, well, sell them what they want. And I was like, oh yeah, that's right. They filled this out because they don't want to do a medical exam. What am I thinking? Mm-hmm. You know? And so anytime I would get off track, what would get me back on track is just getting my mindset right about the lead. It's somebody who requested the coverage. They're interested. That's why they're letting me come over. That's why they want to see me. And then understanding that like the clients don't congregate. They don't get together and have meetings on how to give me better objections or how to mess me up or no show me. Like they're not linked. So the coolest thing about this is if you could just have enough appointments stacked in your favor, the numbers will always work out. And typically it's like the last 2 or 3 after you just went through a slew of like bad stuff, and those ones make your week. And it's just kind of like a pattern that would occur. And when I started working with Andrew, that's really where that set in for me, because I was in the business for about a year and I was making a living, but I was struggling. And finally, Andrew was like, all right, dude, it was 3 days before Christmas. He's like, you could do a ride along with me, but you got to drive while I dial and you're not allowed to talk. And I'm like, okay. So I'm driving and he's booking appointments, and we get to the first appointment like 45 minutes late. So because I'm a terrible driver, I get lost and I go really slow and I almost wrecked like 3 times. So after that one, he's like, hey, I'll drive to the rest. Okay, just don't talk. And I'm like, okay. So we go into the first one and we go up to this house, and there's like these really high gates and like the barbed wire on the top. And it's like not in the best neighborhood. Like it's in what they call Muscoy. So there's San Bernardino County, or there's San Bernardino City, California, which for like years was like the murder capital of America. But really what that was Muscoy, which is the section of San Bernardino where all the stuff would go down. So we're like in Muscoy. And Andrew goes up to the gate. The guy opens the gate. Andrew walks past him, doesn't even say hello, walks into the guy's house. I'm like, do they know each other? This is weird. So we go in. The wife is like, she's got a medical condition. She can't come to the table. There's really nowhere to sit. Andrew takes the one chair, gives the other guy the other chair, basically asks him, hey, do you have any life insurance? The guy goes, yeah. He goes, how much do you pay? He said, I pay this much. He goes, how much is the coverage? He told him. He goes, all right, that's accidental death. Would you like some accidental death where if you don't die, you get all your money back? And the guy goes, that sounds interesting. He goes, yeah, you're paying 22 for this one. That one's only 27. He's like, what happens? If you don't die, you get all your money back. He's like, that sounds pretty good. Andrew goes, go get your checkbook. The guy stands up and goes and gets his checkbook. Meanwhile, Andrew calculates the price on the quote tool. It turns out it was $32 a month. He did it wrong. So the guy comes back. He pulls out a paper app. He goes, what's your social? What's your birthday? Who's your beneficiary? Writes down the banking, sign here. And then he goes, hey, I messed up. It's not 27, it's 32, but in 30 years, you get this much back. Do you want to keep both or you want to cancel the other one? And he goes, I'll keep both. He goes, great. Have a Merry Christmas. And he left. And this whole thing, I swear that was the whole appointment.
That was it.
And I was like, that's not what they teach on the videos, you know? So I'm like running behind him down the driveway. Like he's sitting in the car with freaking revving the gas. And I'm like, what happened there? So I get in the car and he goes, hey, how long was I in that one? I go like 5 minutes. He goes, let's go to Subway. I'm like, okay. So we went to Subway, and on the way there, I'm asking him questions, right? I'm like, dude, how come you didn't get the wife involved? He goes, did you see the wife? She couldn't communicate with us. I go, how come you didn't ask him any health questions? He goes, dude, he was 5'4" and 420 pounds. What health questions could I ask him? I go, what if he didn't want accidental death? He goes, I would have left. And I'm like, I've been thinking way too deep about this. You know what I mean? And so
Good.
now the reason it was like that, though, this was the big lesson that I got, because the rest of the day he didn't sell anything. He had like 8 appointments. It just went bad. And so we're driving home at like 10:30 at night. Paul McLean calls and Paul goes, dude, I killed it in the field. I helped 8 families today. And Andrew was a little upset, you know, like he was bothered, like, don't rub it in. He's like, how'd you do? He goes, I did 1 accidental, but the numbers always work out. I have 9 tomorrow. And so I was like, all right, cool. You know, and I thought maybe they're setting me up. They're just trying to teach me how to get a good attitude or whatever. So the next day he goes out and he sold like 8 out of 9. Helped like 8 families in one day. He calls me at 10:30 at night on the way home. He's like, hey, I helped 8 families today. You know what that means? I go, what? He goes, you're bad luck. And then he hung up on me. but the lesson that I've tried to get across to people was he had a gift for keeping a good attitude when he'd had 7, 8, 9 in a row that didn't do it. And then when he had 7, 8, 9 in a row that did do it, like he didn't take the next day off. He just acted like they were all going to cancel, and he would go run his appointments. And he did that every single week. And what's really interesting, we put a lot of emphasis on like closing percentage. You know, everybody's like, well, so-and-so closes 96% of the people. And dude, that's how Paul was. Paul closes 85% of the people. Like he really would. Like he closes almost all of them. Like they'll buy. And at the end of 2016, Paul helped 500 and something families that year. Andrew helped 500 and something families that year. And they had their appointment books in the office. So I'm going through Paul's appointment book, and he had 18 appointments every single week, close 85%. He did that in 2 days. He would run 2 days. That's all he did. Andrew did 27 appointments every single week. The difference, and Andrew only closed like 30%. So the difference between a 30% closer and an 80% closer was just an extra day on the field. Wow. And once I learned that like unlocked the code, because the clients aren't talking to each other. They aren't congregating, trying to figure out ways to give me better objections. And I started looking at it the right way. Like I'm just averaging 7 to 10 appointments a week. That's why I'm not selling nothing. So when I took the appointment, and then what I did is I went to Paul one time and I go, dude, I'm selling this much. I'm running this many appointments. If I want to sell twice as much, you know, do I need to do twice as much? And he goes, no, you just need to do a little bit more.
Just a little bit more.
And it was a fascinating concept, because maybe at my point where I was running 7 to 10, maybe I did need to do 20 or 30. But if Paul wanted to sell more, it didn't mean he had to go do 36. It just means he needed to do 23. And that 23 extrapolated over time would yield a much greater result. And I think if people really understood that, like John Wetmore said something that changed the trajectory of the way that I looked at this. Wetmore one year, he goes, hey, I sell 25% of the time. My average sale is $1,000. So what I'm going to do is run 1,000 appointments, close 25% of them, and issue 250,000. That was his goal. By October of that year, he had already helped over 400 families. And he stuck to the plan. And then everybody's like, well, dude, like, I thought you only closed 25%. He goes, I did too, but what I didn't account for was momentum and getting better. And if people could just understand that one thing, if you just stick to your appointment goal and do it long enough, and what'll happen is momentum and getting better will kick in, and you'll be amazed at what the results end up being. But what most people do is they'll put their foot on the gas for like a week, and then they'll take a week and a half off, and then they get behind and they put their foot on the gas for a week. Right. And then they take a week and a half off or 2 weeks, and then they're like, I'm going to run harder than I ever have. And they have the best week they ever had. And then the next week they do it again. And then they take 2 weeks off again, and they go through this whole thing. And if they just understood the power of a consistent, persistent schedule over time and committing to it, what that would actually turn into.
You know, what's interesting real quick, Trey, as you say that, for those that are just taking us all in, and of course, what we love about Trey, I mean, he's gone through so much experience that if he coughs, we take notes, right? There's so much wisdom in everything he says. One of the things I'm hearing, guys, is just the power of running and knowing your numbers, And, I heard someone say once that massive activity will reveal your weaknesses. It'll make you think you're bad. But here's what's cool. And this is what Trey is sharing, that massive activity will also heal your weaknesses. It's almost like a double-edged sword, but how do you know what your compass is? Well, you got to run the numbers, right? And if you run the numbers, it's a compass for you. Hey, maybe Trey was not a Paul McLean initially, but as he went through and he just stacked the deck in his favor, everything worked out. Well, isn't it interesting? And maybe this is a topic we can kind of piggyback off of. There's so much comparison. We work in such a competitive environment at FFL because we're the big leagues of the simplified issue space. You, of all people, working in the office of these two idols, Paul McLean and Andrew Taylor. How was that? I mean, obviously you're doing your thing, but was it challenging not comparing yourself to these two when they're throwing apps left and right, as if just doing it as if it was on command?
Well, that was yes. Okay. So here's another big lesson. So one time I go to this spring sales conference, right? And Sean Mike's there. And it's when we first started getting people to actually show up to them. We went from meetings with 5-6 people to getting 25 there. So we're we got 25 people at the meeting. This is unbelievable. At the big training. And I had started working for Andrew as his recruiter. And Sean kind of cornered me in the crowd and questioned me in front of everybody. And he goes, Trey, when you talk to a new agent, how often do you tell them they need to be in the field? And I go, now Paul and Andrew ran 2-3 days a week, right? That's what I had to model. They've been in the insurance business for 5 years already, though. 5, 6, 7 years already. I was brand new. So I was well, I tell them, 2-3 days a week. And Sean got so mad and he goes, no, they need to be in the field every day because they don't have any money. He's like, what are you talking about 2 to 3 days a week? 2 to 3 days a week, they don't have any money. They need to be in the field every day. And what I realized, the mistake that I made was I tried to measure myself against them and run their schedule. And if I would have just ran 40 appointments in a week before, trying to model what they were doing, that learning curve would have been so much shorter and I could have got to the same level of production so much faster. But what I tried to do is model their schedule, but they were already really good at it. So in the beginning, you just got to be really comfortable making up in numbers what you lack in skill. And what I found out was that Paul and Andrew were human. That was also, I had an unfair advantage because I was around them and I would see them. Yesterday we're at a lock-in here in Victorville, and Paul has it dialed in 4 years, and he gets on the phone with 2-year-old leads and books 8 appointments.
2-year-old leads?
Yeah, with everybody in an hour and a half. And I was like, holy crap, the leads aren't bad. People just don't know what they're doing. And when I heard Paul, he sounded the exact same as he sounded years ago. He's done it so many freaking times, and you have to think about it. And I'm like, you got to be kidding. You haven't done it for 4 years. But the flip side of that was I saw their ups, I saw their downs. I would go to clients where Paul had been there and blown the sale, and then I would sell it. I'd go to clients where Paul didn't sell it, Andrew didn't sell it, and then I'd end up selling a children's whole life. I'd have a lead because all we used to have was direct mail. So there's these different mail houses and they would mail out different leads and people would fill out multiple ones. So we were all dialing at the same time. And there were times where Andrew would get the lead from LeadCo, I'd get the lead from ARM, and then Paul would get the lead from MailPro, and they're different leads. They're not the same one, they filled them out. And Paul would call the lady and she'd be mad and hang up on him. And Andrew would call the lady and she'd be like, hey, we're not going to be around, call us next week. And then I'd call it and she's like, yeah, we're around tomorrow. And this would happen within a 2-hour time period.
No
and
way.
It blew my mind because I'm just, in the same office. And that's when I figured it out. I'm just it's all timing. You just got to work the leads. Everybody gets the same objections. Paul goes through the same stuff I go through. But he would just do it more consistent with a good attitude longer. And
makes sense.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this. There's so many new agents that get in because they have a problem they got to solve. Some people got Band-Aids, other people need surgery financially or whatever they're looking for. When you got in, first, why did you get in? What were you trying to accomplish? And secondly, when did you decide, you know what, I'm going to do this. I'm in it to win it,
Yeah.
whatever it takes.
So when I first got started, my whole goal was to keep my kids in the school where they went, which is a Christian school. We had to pay money. So my goal was to cover the tuition and part of our house payment. That's all I was trying to make. And when I started, I had a job at a furniture store full time, and I started doing FFL part time. And I actually, my first quarter, I made a lot. I made more money the first quarter doing this with FFL than I'd ever made at anything in my life. It didn't actually go that bad. It felt like it went bad because everybody was saying no, but I had a few big sales in there over the course of like the months, over the course of that 3 months where it would like make up a big difference. Like there was this one house, it was the World Series where the Royals and the Giants were playing. It's like the last game. You get there at like 9:30 at night, and the kids are like running around crazy. They're watching the game. It was hard for me to book it. And I wrote enough insurance in that house to help like 7 families. Just did one, and it was a hard one to set. It was an old lead. And I had a few instances like that. But if you'd have looked at the rest of the week, I was just getting my butt kicked, So what ends up happening was I did pretty good, that first quarter. The first full year, though, my mom had cancer and the cancer came back. And so I was just focused on that. So I only helped 70 families my first full year after that first quarter was over. And then my mom passed away, and Andrew gave me a job in his office, basically just to get me out of the house so I wouldn't like jump out the window, like kind of thing. So he gives me a job in the office working, he said 25 hours, but it ended up being 40 hours. And the rule is while I was working on his business, I was not allowed to work on my business. So I had to dial on Thursday and Friday nights for my weekend sale days. And I sold more insurance doing it part-time really than I did any full-time year, because I had all that structure of I had to dial during this time to do what I needed to do. But that's when it changed for me, is when I started working for Andrew, and I started seeing the kind of money he was making with a small team and selling a lot, and how profitable it was. Because even though I sold a lot in the beginning, I was getting crushed with chargebacks, like everything chargeback. And I thought everybody was like that. I thought it was all a scam. I'm like, nobody keeps it. It's overpriced. Everybody gets chargebacks. Nobody can pay their bills. And then I started working for Andrew. I'm like, oh, he really can pay his bills. Like,
so you realized
making a lot of money.
It was just you.
Yeah, exactly. So then I was like, all right, well, maybe this does make sense for me to go recruit a few people, because he had a team that was helping when I first started there. He had a team that was helping about 180 families a month, and there were like 20 of them. That was Andrew's team when I started. And when I saw the overrides he was making just off that, plus the fact that he was helping 40 families a month himself, that I was like, there's something to this, So that's when I got sold out, somewhere in the middle of 2016. And then I really started building it in 2017.
Beautiful. Now tell me this, you're an agent, you get the belief check, you go through, run a couple appointments, it works. And so you go for more. You decide like Trey, hey, I want to go ahead and build an agency, change the world. How do you start? Maybe you don't have the experience that you had. Now, from your previous days of not wanting people to run away from you at the grocery store, how did you get back in the game of recruiting an agency and people in a way that you felt good about?
Yeah. So I just called it out. Like if you were one of those people from back in the day, I would just call you up and be like, Mac, I know I've tried to recruit you a bunch of times and you run for me in the grocery store. And I know I took a pitch, but this time we really are. And all I'm asking you is just listen for 45 seconds. And then I would just launch into it. And then I'd get you to agree to watch the video. And I'm like, just watch it. When you think it's stupid, tell me it's stupid. I'll never bring it up again. Love you, bye. And then I do. That's all I did. My whole goal was just to get it in front of people, because the one thing I did understand that was crucial is I recruited people for who they knew. I did, like, I'm going to go recruit Bob because he's going to sell a lot. I would look at it like, Bob's in real estate. He knows everybody. I'm going to share this with Bob because he might be able to bring some people that can sell better than both of us. And that's the way I approached it in the very beginning. And the other thing I realized is I don't need everybody to do it. And the big waste of time is spending people who aren't going to do it anyway. So my whole mentality was I'm going to tell people no first, and I'm going to be selective. So I'm going to share it with people. And then once they know the good, bad, and the ugly, if they don't want to do it, I'm not going to talk them into it. I'm just looking for people that know the good, bad, and the ugly, and they still want to do it. And I like them.
So good. That's
So
so
when
good.
they have a hard time in the business, I'm going to answer the phone because I like them.
Right.
You know, it's not just some stranger I met on Craigslist that doesn't know me. I don't know them. They don't like me. I don't like them. Now they have a problem. I definitely don't want to talk to them. It's like somebody that I knew that I would have to continue to talk to, and I don't want to let them down. So when they call me at 11 o'clock at night on their way home from their last appointment when they got no-showed 3 hours from home, I'll answer, you know?
You could be selective here, which is what and if taking notes, recruiting through versus recruiting to, right?
Yeah.
It makes such a difference. And here's one note, if you wanted to quantify something that he just said, there's this myth that we're all 7 degrees of separation from whatever you need. Wealthy, successful people, or just successful people in general, here's one thing we know about them. They are resourceful, right? They may not have the money. They may not have the infrastructure, but you know what they're good at? Finding the people who do, right? Using OPM, other people's money, other people's mind, and whatever thing you need right now, whether it's a client, it's 7 degrees away from you. It could be the first call you made, so forth and so on. And that's one thing that really galvanized me when it came to recruiting is the person that I'm looking for is not maybe the person that I recruited, but maybe someone that they know. And statistically, it's normally 2 to 5 levels deep from the person you recruit is who you're looking for. So Trey, actually, if you have questions, guys, go ahead and pop on the chat and we'll have him answer it. Someone asked a great question. You know, we think of these great builders. There's 2 different ways to grow. You either focus on your strengths or try to minimize your weaknesses, right? Where do you go? So if someone's asking a question, are you better at writing on your own pen or recruiting? And if you have someone who's better at recruiting, what should they do? Should they just try to become top of the leaderboard so that they can, get that accolade, or should they focus on what they're good at? How should you build?
Well, it's really hard to, I'll just be honest with you, it's really hard to recruit if you don't sell, because you get very distant from what it is that people are actually doing when they're going out and helping people. So I think more important than the amount is being a consistent producer. My wife had a full-time job the whole time, and we could pay our bills off my wife's income. So I never had to go out and help 40 families in a month to pay my bills. I never had to do that. If I did 20, 25, we were balling. Like it was a lot of money for us. Like it was just extra. I could put that back into building the agency and doing all the stuff I needed to do and traveling and whatever I had to do. So what was important other than the amount though was just consistent. I think you got to string 12, 20, 25, 30 weeks in a row without rolling a zero. Like that's more important than saying, hey, I helped 74 families this week. Like it's more important saying I helped 17 families this week. If you just helped 5 families, but you did it every week, and let's say you're part-time, you do that every week, that's a really valuable recruiting story. And you have a lot to offer people when you recruit them. You can show them, hey, this is how you do it consistently with a job. This is how you do it consistently and get better over time. This is what it looks like. But the person that doesn't sell at all, like they have a hard time. They really do, because, and it's not that you have to be the best salesperson in the world, because actually, if you do this right, you don't spend a lot of time teaching people how to do it. You're just guiding and directing them to where to find the information if you do it. But you do have to stay in tune with what it is that the new person is going through and do that more than anything.
Got to keep a pulse.
It's
difficult to train something that you either haven't done or you're not doing. I personally always respected leaders who were in the trenches with me.
Right.
I don't care how bad they were, but they were in with me. And now, Trey, you mentioned something about being dispensable and absent. Could you share a little thought about that when it comes to leading, no matter whether you're the only person on your team or you have a whole crew?
Yeah. So Sean Mike taught me this. He said, don't be expendable and absent at the same time. Like you could be absent, but as long as you're not expendable, you're okay. You could be expendable, but if you're always around, you're going to be all right. But don't do both. And I think that's the right way to look at a healthy organization. Somebody said to me a couple weeks ago, they were like, you know, talking about agents that have a lot of success, and then they go post on their Instagram or their Facebook what they did over the weekend and their great lifestyle. And, and how agents would say, if these agents, if my agents would just work, like if they would just go work, if they would just go do the work, then we'd be okay. And I said to the guy, dude, I'm more afraid for the manager that's doing fun things every weekend for what his team thinks if he's not working. Like, the best gift you could give your team is for your team to know that no matter what, you're actually doing something productive. Like you're working, you're trying. Because when you're the guy that's just making overrides, dude, that's a slippery slope, and it's hard. It's hard to overcome a lot of the trials that come with that. So,
Love it.
So I you sell consistently, and if you're great at recruiting, then just be great at recruiting, but just be consistent selling. So if somebody was better at recruiting, like the best schedule that ever worked for me was I would recruit all week and I'd run on the weekend. So I'd be home in the evenings, and then on the weekends, nobody would see me. I'd be gone all weekend. And that worked. That's how I built it.
And this, just for ease to simplify, what does recruiting look like in FFL? We are a different deal where we don't need anyone in order to make money. We can do fine just by ourselves. For you, how did that look like to start when you said, you know what, I start building? What was the first steps? What is the simple form? And when do you know you're putting it in overdrive, or do you even have to?
Yeah. So what I tried to do was I literally just went through my phone. I found people that I thought would be good at it, and I orchestrated a plan to approach them. That's what I did. Everybody in my organization that turned into something came from my phone, every single one. And they may have led us to people who weren't in my phone that were like from an ad, but then those people recruited people that they knew, and then it turned into something. So you look at somebody like I was just talking about this about Bruce Williams. Steven recruited a guy that recruited he recruited a guy in car insurance. And that guy recruited this other guy that never even got licensed, who introduced us to this other dude who got licensed, who had a friend who sold cars who worked with Bruce. And then we brought Bruce to a meeting, and then all those guys in between quit.
Wow.
Wow. And it's fascinating. It works like that. But it literally does over time. If you compare any leaderboard in the company, the thing you'll find out, you look at Nina's leaderboard, you look at Grady's leaderboard, you look at Brent Abernathy's leaderboard, you look at Mark Mead's leaderboard, you look at anybody's leaderboard, what you will find out is the top 25, a majority of those people were people that someone had a personal relationship with when they introduced them to FFL. There's some one-offs where the person came from a Craigslist ad.
Sure.
But for the most part, the vast majority of that is people that had a personal relationship with somebody. And the reason why that's so crucial is because people do business with people they know, like, and trust. And in this business, trust is the most important thing, because when they get started, you're asking them to invest all this money into leads.
Right.
And when you have, you recruit your cousin, you're like, cousin, let's get $1,000 so you could buy some leads. And then he buys $1,000 worth of leads. Like, his cousin will do it, like, you're my cousin. If you say, like, I know where to find you. Like, it's a different relationship than, I meet this guy on Craigslist. He hasn't made an insurance before. He felt at the last place. This time's going to be different. I'm going to talk him into spending $1,000 he doesn't have. And then everything that can go wrong goes wrong, so I think everybody should start with the people they know.
And what does this sound like, Trey? I mean, you get your phone. What do you say? How do you text them? Do you call them?
Dude, texting is like a cheat code. It really is. Like, back in the day, we would call everybody and like pitch them and try to explain stuff. But if you just take the video, like you guys that run in-person appointments, even if you're doing it on the phone with your Ringy or whatever, like if you're on Ringy and you disposition your lead on a phone sale, just like take a picture of it and then put how much you made on it, and then send people the picture. Like, it's really easy. Like, if I went through my phone yesterday, and there's a girl in there named Patrice that I know, that I've never recruited, it's never worked with me. And she lives in Palm Springs, and she knows I do insurance. And I'm like, I've never talked to her before. So I took a picture. Michael Ochoa had a picture of a client. He was at the office. I took the picture of his client, and I go, Patrice, my friend Michael sat with this lady and in 30 minutes made enough money to pay his house payment. And then she bought him a Big Mac. Why are you not working with me? Smiley face.
Love it.
like how simple is that, right? Like the problem is not knowing. The problem isn't not knowing what to say. It's just you're not saying anything
At all.
Because with this, if you just say something, it'll lead to the right conversation. And as long as you let a tool like the Rogue IMO do the heavy lifting, where you're not explaining it and throwing up all over people, if you can just pique interest and get them to agree to watch it, and then just let the chips fall where they may. That's the way I always did it. And I just made a habit of doing that so many times a day until I got enough people in the pipeline that what I was trying to do is do that with people they knew. And then none of that ever interfered with me actually selling, because it doesn't take that long to have a few 5-minute conversations, introduce people to it, and then follow up and get them into class, because they got to still go get their insurance license.
Right.
You know, so it's a process. If you just start looking at it like a process and you do it a little bit every single day, it's amazing how quickly it'll compound. And then if you do it long enough, people just do what you did. You don't even have to tell them how. Like I recruited my real estate agent, Mary, on YouTube. This was on a video. I don't know if y'all remember when I did that. Dude, Mary helped 20 families last month. She went to conference and she has 26 of her friends in class.
Wow.
And all I had to do is just give her, I said, hey, send this video to your friends. I didn't even say any more than that. She started doing it. They're interested. You want to talk to them? I'll talk to them. Sure. She puts me in group text with people. Trey's going to call you. Like, who is this person? What am I doing? And if they hadn't watched it, I'm like, watch the video. I follow back up with them. Just made it real simple.
That's
you know.
And,
yeah.
and what it doesn't matter what profession it is. So, hey,
no.
You have a situation where you help the family, help protect someone. For someone like Mary, I mean, they're professionals. We all know. What did you say to Mary to pique her interest?
Well, she says that I twisted her arm, which is funny because she was like the least arm twisting I think I've ever done. Like you meet Mary and Mary goes, Trey really twisted my arm to get me to do this. And I'm thinking, I didn't twist your arm at all. Like I tried to talk you out of it. I don't know what you're talking about. But the way I approached her is I called her up and I'm like, hey, so Mary, you're the world's greatest realtor, by the way. And we just really appreciate you because you helped us buy this house. And we're so thankful. And I was going through my contacts and I looked at it and I felt really guilty because I know I sell life insurance and I think you'd be really good at it. And I want you to take a look. And if you say no, I'll get mad. And if you look and you say no, I won't be mad. Will you look? Like something stupid like that. Like it was and she's like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, I'm going to send you a video about selling life insurance. You probably won't even like it, but I just tell me what you think. And then I got off the phone. Like this is recorded. You guys can go back and watch. So she watched it.
So you actually recruited her live, is what you're saying? I
recruited her live, like on a team huddle like this.
I love it.
So then she watched it and I followed up with her. And I'm like, hey, what did you like about it? And she goes, well, I like this and I like that, but I do real estate and, I don't know if it's for me. And I'm like, okay, cool. It's not for everybody. And I just kind of left it. And then a little bit later, she like texts me back and she goes, well, what does it mean when it says 90%, 100%? I didn't really understand that. And so then I called her and I explained the commission. And I'm like, when you say it's not for you, like, you think it's harder than real estate? Like you sell real estate, like that's really hard. She's like, oh, it is really hard. I work really hard. It's slowing down. And we just talked about it. And then she finally was like, well, I guess I could get my license. And it just turned into something.
Love it.
The thing is, everybody wants like a roadmap on how to do it. But I'm telling you, the reason why it's not working is because people just aren't starting the conversation. The reality is every person watching this, you're really successful at selling life insurance. Because if you can go help 2 or 3 families in a week, that's a really strong success story. When I was making more in a month than I made in 2 or 3 years before, it was harder for me to recruit doing that than it is for somebody just starting out that helps 10 families in a month working on the weekends. Because that's a story people can relate to. And I think if you guys that are new can understand that, you have a more powerful recruiting story than an integrity partner.
Absolutely.
You really do.
Absolutely. So I'm gonna throw some rapid fire questions at you.
Okay.
And as you guys have questions, throw them in the chat. Best part of the business ever?
The best part of the business for me is seeing people change their financial situation. That's the best part of the business. I mean, Joe Miller goes to Texas and buys a freaking
mansion.
Yeah, right. Like, it's ridiculous, right? I'm just like, this is so crazy.
Hardest part about the business?
Hardest part about the business is not getting emotional when you have no sales, chargebacks, stuff like that. That's the hardest part.
It's tough not being emotional, especially when you are so passionate. When you're passionate, it's a fine line. You almost are naturally emotional, right?
Right.
Biggest month personal.
Biggest
Number of families
personal,
helped.
37 families helped.
Awesome. And did you struggle to get that, or was it just doing the deal?
No, I struggled. That was hard. That was hard for me.
Copy that. Biggest month team, families helped.
I don't know how to say it. 3,200.
Wow.
Yeah, that's the biggest.
Well, you can get with me on offline. We'll do the math together, right? That's a lot. Cool. That's a lot.
Yeah.
As far as building, when did you know it was taking off? So let me rephrase the question. There are people that want to get in to transition into building. It's a hard dance, if you will. Should you do anything different, and at what point? So what does it look like starting off? You're helping with the videos, and people are interested. People are getting going. What should you do differently as you transition to maybe you have 20 writers like you have, then you have 40 and 50, or is it really the same ride all the way up to the top?
Ask the beginning part of that question one more time.
What should you do differently, or rather, should you do anything differently when you're building a team of, when you have 10 people, 20 people as a leader, and at what point, and what should you be doing differently when you have a certain number of people, if you should do anything?
Hiring staff. Hiring staff is the answer. So anything that keeps you from recruiting and selling full-time, you should be offloading to a full-time staff person. And if your business isn't growing, you need to look at where you're spending your time. And that's always the question you want to ask. And anything somebody else can do that's impeding you from recruiting and selling personally, then you hire them to do that. And that way you can continue to grow it. And a big roadblock where people screw it up is, they go make money and they don't invest it back in the business. The one thing Sean Mike did with a lot of us that kept us grounded was we were making money and we didn't realize it because we were investing so much back into like infrastructure and staff and leads and travel and all the stuff that we needed to do to grow it. Nobody changed their lifestyle right away. That's the trap, is changing your lifestyle too quick because the commissions are coming in. Before you change your lifestyle, get an admin or two.
How soon should an agent get staff? Obviously, I mean, is it helping 10 families a month, 20, 30, 40? What's too soon?
Yeah. I think if somebody's, helping 100 families a month as a team, they definitely should have a staff member. 100 to 150 is where you really need to think about getting somebody full-time.
Should it be a recruiter, admin?
I think an admin. I think somebody that can kind of fill all slots, contracting, recruiting, social media, that type of thing. I was Andrew's recruiter, but I was different than the average recruiter, because what I would do is I would recruit people and then I would spend time with them. And then when Andrew wasn't in the field, he would spend time with them. So they just got a lot of attention, but I didn't waste time. I just didn't like throw them against the wall though. So for me, my number one recruiter on my team, I've always done a better job recruiting than any staff member. And I can use Grady as an example. Grady said to me, he became an integrity partner and didn't even have a recruiter. And he goes, my team is my recruiters, what I need a recruiter for. So yeah, I think an all around admin to help with everything that hinders you from spending time with new agents and writing business.
You, as a new agent, if I got started in your team today, what would be the first 3 things you would do to make sure I got into making money?
So that's a good question. I would do a game plan with you. I want to find out your situation. I want to find out the income you have coming in. I want to find out what your goals are. I want to find out if you needed to make money yesterday. Are you about to lose everything? How much time do we have to get to where you want to go? If 90 days from now, you're at a certain place and you look back and you consider that successful, what would that place be? what's your support system look like? Just that type of stuff. Like, I'm just trying to have a real conversation with somebody, have proper expectations, give them an idea, find out how much money they have to spend on leads, how much time they have to invest to do it, and give them real expectations of what the first 90 days is going to look like.
And what does that look like? Do you handhold? How do you engage and work with an agent?
People. I mean, some people need hand holding, so I'll hold their hand. Here's what I do. So I'm looking at it like, nothing's perfect, and there's always going to be something you have to give up. Like, you're never just going to find the perfect agent that's just going to do it without you from the get-go, right? So I'm just weighing like the cost, like, this person is going to sell like crazy, but they annoy the crap out of me, and I really don't even like talking to them. Well, I can get over that because I know where they want to go, and like, I can give up the fact that I have uncomfortable conversations with this person, or they keep asking me the same question over and over, or, whatever it is. Like, I'm always looking up to what I have to give up in the situation, because there's no perfect recruit, right? So that's the first thing I would do with somebody, is have like a real conversation, do like a real game plan. And then, we just built the Agency Dojo app, and I feel like that's the best training platform we've ever had, because everything's in the app, including the community. So we can do what we used to do on Slack, Discord, Crew, all these different places. We can communicate right inside there and get everybody working together on the same page. So there's no confusion on what to do, or where to get the training from, or how to learn it. And you can download that either in the App Store with Agency Dojo, or the Google Play Store. And this is just the first version of it. We're going to tighten it up, make it better with a version 2 and version 3. And it'll have better features as we go along. But I would just encourage everybody to use that as your training tool, so that there's no confusion. They're not looking at 7,500 different YouTube videos, and this person and that person, and this person does it this way, and that person. It's very methodical how we planned it out, so that they're getting the information that we can all agree on.
Good.
And
now,
then,
unless we got more questions, I want to close with this. Now, the integrity. It's a carrot that we have that's rare, that most people don't. Should you run? Why should a new agent? First, what is it for those that are brand new? Why should a new agent go for integrity? We lost Trey. All right, he'll be back in 2 seconds. All right, so a couple of things I'm going to piggyback off of that he talked about is, if you're a brand new agent, you heard what he said that he would do. The questions that you have to ask is, what are you willing to give up? So often, a lot of these new agents, they don't even have clarity in their own minds of what they want to accomplish. All they know is you got to make money. So if you're a leader, meaning if you're the only one on your team, lead yourself. Clarity of vision. Just remember this. If the vision is clear, the price is easy. So you, as a new person, if you don't have a clear vision of what accomplishment looks like, then you're going to fail. And if you have someone on your team, your job is to clarify that vision so well that there are lights. Imagine a dark room, or it's nighttime. You've seen those houses where it looks really pretty at nighttime, but those lights that are come up, it walks with you all the way through. It's the best place you can be. Your job is to clarify that vision just so it works really well. Now, just in case Trey doesn't come back, I'm just going to piggyback off of integrity. So often in the insurance industry, people just work, and that they hope that the renewals are sufficient for them to be able to leave. The challenge with it is, in the insurance industry, there was no parachute. There was no retirement plan, if you will, right? It has to be more than just you working and getting team overrides. So what happened was, I believe it was about 10, maybe plus years ago, a company called Integrity Marketing Group, they looked at the situation. They saw a guy who had a book of business, and they noticed that that person didn't have a chance to get out. So what Integrity did was they said, listen, we will buy your income, right? It'll be our business, but you keep working, and then you become a partner. You'll work to cultivate it, but you don't have to worry about the money anymore. You're done. They did that. It was successful, and they did it again and again and again and again. So what Integrity does is they look for good businesses and they buy them. They are almost a behemoth. They're the Berkshire Hathaway of life insurance, right? You know, Berkshire Hathaway, that's the Warren Buffett's company. They buy good companies. So what Integrity has done is they bought FFL at some point, and Sean Mike was so awesome in that he said, I am not going to take this deal unless you allow each person in this company the same opportunity as I have, where they can get an Integrity deal as well. Integrity said, of course, we'll take it. So here's what it looks like now. Now you have the chance where if you become an Integrity partner, meaning if you build your business big enough, where you're helping 500, 700, 1 million families a month, right? 1,000 families a month, you could say, you have the opportunity to get purchased by Integrity. Not the opportunity, it's going to happen. To give you a little bit of what they call perspective, you look at all these businesses that happen, that start up in the United States of America. I believe the number is only 6% of businesses ever created get the chance to be bought out, right? You're looking for the golden parachute. Now, they want to be bought out, but the number of businesses that actually get bought out, 2%, right? Where there's a business, it's like a house. You put your house up for sale, someone says they want it, but maybe they couldn't find the financing, something was wrong. Maybe, the stars didn't line up, whatever. Only 2%. So you got to build a business worthy of being purchased. Now you've done all that hard work. Now you got to find someone who's going to be able to buy it. We don't have that problem here. All you got to do is just go to work, build your business. First, like Trey said, go sell. You don't have to be the best. Just be consistent. Sell and just start sharing the word just a little bit. 2 a day is a great number. Just tell two people a day, or have 2 people a day hear the FFL story. Not you talking, a third-party tool, a video, right? FFLHavenJobs.com. We have a video right there if you didn't have one, where they see FFL, right? They're interested, you follow up, you connect them with the staff, they contract, they get in your agency, and we help train them. You do that little by little. You have a guaranteed buyer. You don't understand how critical that is. They will buy your business. And of course, here's what happens. You become a partner. Instead of simply earning money from one company, you are a partner in all of these companies. Now, someone can correct me if I'm wrong. Integrity Marketing Group, just to give you an idea, they are the largest, I think, privately owned insurance-ish consulting deal in the United States of America. 6 out of 10, I believe, Medicare supplement plans sold in the US comes from companies they own. And I think it's 4 out of 10 life insurance policies come from companies that they own, right? They're the behemoth of life insurance. The time will come where they're going to go public. And of course, as an Integrity partner, you get stock in the company. What's cool is you have all of these companies that if you're a partner, you are not only a partner of one company, which was yours, you're a partner of all these companies. So as they grow, you grow. This is generational wealth. I mean, this is a chance to become like the Rockefellers, where you have a company that just keeps growing forever. Here's the chance. And here's what I believe, and you can hold me to it. The time will come years down the road. You'll see your picture on the mantle. You won't, but your kids will. One of your great grandkids will say, who's that? Oh, that's great grandma Melissa. Well, why's her picture up? Well, you see this house, so forth. She set it up. Well, how did she get rich? Well, back in the 2020s, she got into life insurance and she built it big, right? And that's what happened. There's a time and space for things, and Integrity is not going to last forever. The opportunity is going to grow. And just to give you one last point, and we'll close. McDonald's, when Ray Kroc started Mickey D's, it was worth X amount, right? Because people didn't know whether you could become a millionaire. But you know what the #1 industry where someone can get successful in the US is? Financial services, right? Where will you get it? Well, in the past, unless you knew someone, you couldn't get in. Here, you get your license, you go to work. Well, what happened to people when they did that? Well, they had low comp. We eradicated that barrier. You got high comp, you got leads, you don't got friends and family. Now you go to work and you knock it out. We knocked out all these barriers, and now we're here. So going back, Ray Kroc, it was offered at this much because people didn't know whether you could be wealthy. The time will come when people know for sure you can be wealthy. All you have to do is do the work. So the opportunity now, it won't be the same, because now to get a Mickey D's, it's $1 million because it's guaranteed. So that's it, guys. Appreciate you guys being on. Look for the video in a couple of days. Take care, take charge. And if you thought this was good, next week we'll have another guest speaker. It's a gentleman that's very, very young, blowing it out the water, and he'll be able to share his experience. Bring your questions here. So take care, take charge, guys. We will see you next week.